Hi, I'm Kim Falcon, and welcome to my YouTube channel. I am the founder of my spiritual practice, Love First, where life transformations happen. And I have offices in Richmond, Virginia, and also in Encino, California. If you'd like to learn more about the work that I'm doing, you can find me at lovefirst.info. That's LOVEFIRST.INFO. And today I wanted to talk about the topic, change is here. Change is here. So what do I mean by that? I mean that the world is changing, basically, and it's starting with us, the individual. And in what ways are we changing? Well, we're changing by moving into our hearts, by living life from the heart space, from the place of love. That is more and more the way in which I'm seeing people live their lives. It's the way that we are collectively being called to live. So from our egos and our minds into our hearts. And what does that mean when that happens? Well, when we live from our hearts, that's the place we feel love. That's where love comes from. And love connects us to truth. Love connects us to who it is we really are. That is, at the soul level, the purest form of who we are. And all good things come from a place of love. So what that's doing is raising our consciousness. It's raising our awareness, raising everything about us, who we are, how we see life, how we see ourselves in life, what our role is in life, how we see ourselves playing a part in that role in life. Being connected to ourselves at a deeper level. We're just connecting to ourselves, period. And in that process, a natural occurrence is that we connect to our spiritual guidance, God and the guidance around us, those in spirit that are helping us on our path in this lifetime. So consciousness is rising. It's a very real thing. It's happening now. It's been happening, but I feel like it's happening at faster rates and in greater proportions. And so, no matter what it is we see around us happening in the world, and there's some, let's face it, there's some pretty not nice things happening in the world today. We see it in the media, on the news, and we see it also in our own country. And sometimes we're having, our own one-off experiences with other people and different situations that may not feel so nice. And so it makes us wonder, well, golly, what kind of world are we living in? And so while this may be happening around us, the good news is that more and more people are coming into this awareness where they are living from their hearts. Now, how does this happen? Is it that we wake up one day and all of a sudden we're living from our hearts? Well, as I've experienced, as I've seen, and as I've seen for myself, it's happening through relationships and events that are triggering that within us. So it's happening with relationships where people are coming into our lives, and it's just the sheer connection from that relationship, whether it's a romantic relationship or non-romantic, just the sheer connection with them trigger something on an energetic level and within ourselves that gets us to take a greater look at our lives. All aspects of our lives. It's not just one aspect, it's like everything coming together. And it can also be through different experiences that we're having. It could be a loss of a job. It could be entering into retirement. It could be illness. These are all different ways in which people are being triggered. It could be the collapsing, the crumbling of a marriage, a 20+ year marriage. So real life-changing events that are taking place, triggering within us to take a greater look at ourselves. Who am I? What is my purpose here? How is it that I see life? How is it that I see myself in the world and in this life? Where is it that I'm placing value? And where I'm placing value, is that still fit? Is that still resonate? Does that still feel right with where I am today and how I'm starting to see things? All of these really important questions are coming to the surface through these different triggers that are happening around us, within us. And it's a very critical time for us in that way. It's a very critical time for us in that way. I've seen it also in my own life. I've had some real life-changing events within myself over the last year that's changed everything about who I am and how I see things and how I relate to life and how I relate to myself and my own divine connection. Everything about my life has changed, and I'm seeing that more and more in the people around me, in family members. I'm seeing that in friends. I'm seeing that pronouncedly in the clients that are coming to me. I just had about 7 or 8 back-to-back readings this last weekend. And at the end of the day, I couldn't believe what I just experienced. How many of those sessions were about just that. Significant things happening in these people's lives that they needed understanding around. That's changed their whole perspective on life itself. And it's important because, you know, a lot of times you can listen to spiritual teachers or people that are talking about this kind of thing, people that do this kind of work, and you'll hear them say that. Oh, there's changes in consciousness, change is happening. And it's one thing to hear it, but it's another to live it, to experience it, to see it taking place all around you. And that's what I feel like has been happening to me. Quite honestly, I have received channeled messages. If you go to my blog on lovefirst.info, I think it's /blog, you will see a lot of the channeled work that I've done, from messages from Archangel Gabriel, messages from the Federation of Light, all talking about these shifts that are happening. And, you know, a lot of times people that channel information, they get this kind of, they channel these different kinds of beings, they get this kind of information and then they share it and you read it and you think, oh, how nice, there's going to be changes that are coming. Gosh, when is this happening? I don't see it around me, or I'm not really, it sounds kind of out there, but it sounds nice. And then all of a sudden, you actually see these changes taking place within yourself and the people around you, and you know, this is real. This is the information that I've been channeling, the information that these beings of higher levels of wisdom have been sharing, and it's true. It's taking place now. It's not 20 years from now. It's not some time at a different timeline or decades from now. It's now. It's now. And what I want to share about this, the significance in this, is that people are taking inventory of all aspects of their life, and that's really what it is we're being called to do. And the only way it is that you can move to the heart center from the head to higher ways of being is to do just that. So these experiences that are triggering this within ourselves is really helping us to have a better relationship with who it is we really are, okay? And then it's helping us with our relationships around us. And while this is happening at a micro level, because it all starts with us, the individual, this then affects the world around us. What we do on an independent basis for ourselves is the greatest contribution that we can make to humanity as a whole, because we are all connected. And you will see that as you when you do something nice for somebody else, it makes them happy, and because they're happy, then they're able to help another person or share happiness with somebody else or inspire someone else to be happy, and on it goes. Well, if you think about that might be one instance where we do something nice for someone, and then it, like a domino effect, affects other people. But think about what that can do if you change your whole being. Everything about you changes, not just for that moment in time, but from that point on. Think about what kind of effect you can have on the world by doing that. That's the significance that I'm talking about here of what's happening. And something else that I want to say about that. Oh goodness, I lost my train of thought, and that sometimes I try and write it down so that I don't do that. But really, this is not only, okay, I want to say this. So, I'll give an example of what I mean by this. So there's a person that I'd been working with who reconnected with an old flame, who's married and has children, and that connection triggered all kinds of things within this person as it relates to how they're thinking about their life, how they're thinking about who they want to be in life, the parent that they want to be, currently their current relationship in their marriage, is that the right one for them? What do they want their marriage to look like? Where it is they are placing values, and how it is they might shift those values moving forward, given this new level of understanding and awareness. And so all of these things are going on within themselves, and at the same time, their child, who is a teenager, is recognizing their own sexuality of being gay, and has brought this to their attention. So they are being challenged to take a look at how they understand all aspects of life and love. Okay, so their traditional views of love is starting to shift and take on a new level of understanding. Now, what I find so amazing about this particular situation is that children and generations now are coming into this lifetime at higher levels of awareness and consciousness. They're already living from their hearts. And I'd like to give an example of that too. So this person's child, who at the age of 13 is aware of their own sexuality, and they're not trying to hide it in any way. In fact, they are being courageous and bold enough to share it with their parents. Now, most stories that we hear of people in their 30s, 40s, 50s, later in life, is when they're tending, in the past anyways, as we've known it, coming to truths about themselves. A lot of people go through their lives and they, enter heterosexual marriages, and they carry on what they feel like is the life they're supposed to live, which is not a life of truth. And then it's, many years later, after they're married with children, etc., that they can't hide it any longer. Now, what we're seeing, and this is an example of that, is somebody, when I take a look at their child's soul, their soul came into this lifetime to live a life of truth out of the gate, which is basically what it takes at age 13 to do something that bold, right? To recognize that about yourself and to be true to yourself, and to share that with your parents without the fear of not being accepted, but being so motivated to live in truth that this is what they're able to do. Okay, that's higher levels of consciousness and awareness and connection to their true self, living authentically at the ripe old age of 13. And by no surprise is this all coming, unfolding at the same time as this person had this new level of kind of awareness triggered within them, and then they're also being confronted with the news from their child. So these are major life occurrences that I'm talking about that are happening, and we're seeing these heightened levels of awareness in all ages. And I'm going to give another example of that. So I recently had a client come to me for energy healing, and she's 18 years old. It's not often that you get a client who's 18 years old who's researching energy healing and thinks that that would be something they'd like to do. Most 18-year-olds are, girls are out there getting highlights in their hair and figuring out their outfit for the party that weekend. And the guys are out there hanging with their buddies and those kinds of things. Nonetheless, I had a client come to me who's 18 years old, wanted energy healing for some physical pain that she was feeling. And also some emotional things that she was trying to work through as well. Well, usually when I do energy healing on someone, I get a flood of information that comes through as soon as I start to work on them. What's going on with them, aspects of their lives that need healing, things that they need to pay attention to that are important for their happiness and well-being, relationships in their lives that have affected them, that are influencing how they are today and how they're feeling about themselves today. All those kinds of things come up for me in an energy healing. And as I was working on this girl, not much was coming through at all, except for maybe one or two key topics, things that were important for me to talk to her about. I thought, wow, that's interesting, because usually I take 10-15 minutes after the energy healing session to sit down and go through the guidance that came through, the things that I intuited from the session, etc., and talk through it with them. But not much was coming through with her. And when I sat down to talk to her, usually when I sit down to talk to my clients, it's like a real informational, educational experience, because what I'm talking to them about is new ways of thinking about things. I'm bringing to light things that they may not have been aware of. And so it's all kind of new information for them. For her, she already knew everything I was talking about. It was the most amazing experience. In fact, she was explaining to me what was happening with her. As I moved through different parts of her body, she felt different physical sensations, and she knew what it was I was working on and what it was I was doing, clearing the heart space and filling it back with love, for example. People normally don't understand that. They don't know what I'm doing. They don't feel it at that level. She was telling me exactly what it was I was doing and how she was feeling, and everything that I was talking to her about, she already knew about herself. Now, this physical pain and discomfort that she was feeling, she also knew that that was from an earlier time in her life that was critical in her own spiritual growth, that that physical pain wasn't there, it wasn't in place per se to be a chronic pain of hers, but it was rather there to teach her something about herself and what it was she needed to learn about a relationship that she'd had, which is what I had intuited in the session as well. However, most people do not recognize that. When they have a physical pain, they will say, what, why is this there? Why? These are the kinds of things that typically people do. How did this happen to me? What is this, how can I get rid of it? But why has this happened to me? They might even take on a victim role. Oh, because of this pain, I've had such hardships in my life. And while pain can definitely do that, I'm not trying to devalue or underestimate pain. But what I'm saying is somebody of a much younger age had a much greater understanding of her situation than anyone I've ever worked with. And she was only 18 years old. And as I was talking to her about things on a spiritual level, she already understood it. She already knew what it was I was talking about. I like, it brings me to tears because this is exactly what it is I'm talking about. This is happening, and how could somebody who's 18 years old have that kind of awareness? It's it's very real. So I also share another personal story of mine. So for those of you who know me know that I have a daughter. Her name is Jacqueline. And last year when she was 4, we went on a trip. We were in a hotel room, and she was in the room by herself. She was leaning up against the bed, and I walked into the room, and I said, Jacqueline, what are you doing? She's all there. She's just by herself, just staring out what would have looked like to space, just staring, straight ahead, not doing anything. And I said, Jacqueline, what are you doing? And she said, I'm sending love to the world. I'm sending love to the world. People that are adults don't do that. And I said, well, that's beautiful because the world needs love. And I said, that's such a beautiful thing to do. So that makes mommy so happy to see you doing that. And then I left the room, and I came back, and she was still there. She was still there by herself, staring out into space. I said, Jacqueline, what are you doing now? Are you still sending love to the world? She said, no, I'm sending love to myself. Okay. That is an example of what I'm talking about. A 4-year-old has that awareness. Sending love to the world is one thing, but then also knowing to send love to yourself. That is what we call self-love, right? So many people today that I work with don't love themselves in the way that they should. They don't recognize themselves for who they really are. And some people have issues of worthiness, don't feel they're worthy, don't see themselves for who they really are. And so self-love comes into that, or a lack thereof. But we have children being born in this world now who already understand that concept that adults struggle with for most of their lives. So very, very important time that we are in right now. And it's almost like we are being called to do this, to take inventory of our lives, to take a look at who we are, to understand who it is we really are, to connect to ourselves. We're being called to do that. And it is a natural kind of evolution of where we are. It's because new energies are coming into the earth that are requiring that of us, higher frequencies of energy. So when we're living in a place where the frequency, the vibration of the energy is rising, then if we are going to live here comfortably, we are going to have to match that vibration in order to resonate with the place that we live. Again, this is what I've channeled in much of my work. But now I'm starting to see it happen. So what happens, what does that mean? Match the vibration of the energy that we're living in? Well, it would be like, it's like, you know, having a group of friends. Let's just say that your group of friends, or the group of friends that you like to go and party with, you know, come Friday, you're out at happy hour drinking away and going out to the clubs and tearing it up on the dance floor till 4 a.m, hungover the next day, sleeping in, not feeling so great, and then getting ready to do it all over again Saturday night, right? And that's what you're used to doing with your group of friends. Then all of a sudden, things within you change, and you start, that kind of lifestyle doesn't resonate with you anymore, and you start making healthier choices, and you start valuing the sleep that you have, getting to bed early enough so you can wake up to take that yoga class, or to go exercise, or to take a hike, making healthier food choices, staying away from alcohol, at least alcohol in that quantity. And then all of a sudden, the friends that you would do that with, you don't feel like you resonate with them anymore, because they're still out partying till 4 a.m, and that's not really what you want your life to be anymore. And you don't, you know, I'm not placing judgment here, I'm just giving an example of how that would feel. And that's what you would call as not resonating anymore. We've all had that happen with just people that maybe we just fall out of resonance with. We don't have things in common with them, or it doesn't feel so good. I mean, if you're living that healthy lifestyle and then you're out at the clubs till 4 a.m. with people, you know, around you that might be high or smoking, they're drinking, they're, you know, hooking up, and you're not living that kind of life anymore, it's going to feel uncomfortable. So that's what I'm talking about. It's not going to feel so nice anymore. And whereas before, we could get away with that, not having to answer these questions that I'm talking about. We could get away with maybe not living in integrity, or not living in truth, and not having to live our life authentically. We could do that and still live our lives and not necessarily be as affected by it. There may be levels of unhappiness that would come with that, because there always is when you're not living in alignment with your soul. But that uncomfortability was not at a great enough level maybe to inspire change. It was like it was manageable, but it was still bringing in maybe unhappiness, but wasn't levels of unhappiness that were so great that you just had to make a change. Well, now it is. Now is the time when you're not going to be able to get away with this as much anymore. The old ways of being are not going to yield the levels of happiness that you thought they'd yield. The old ways of being are not going to give you the happiness and the peace that it is that you seek. And it's going to become more and more uncomfortable as the energy around us changes and the people start to match that energy. If you make choices not to do that as well, more and more you're going to be the odd one out. And more you will feel greater levels of unhappiness. It'll be clear to you, these levels of unhappiness. You're not going to be able to mask it with other things. There's going to be nowhere to turn except back to yourself. And that's what these relationships that I'm talking about and these life experiences do that trigger this within us. They turn us right back to ourselves, because that's the relationship that it is we most need, is that relationship with ourselves. And because everything starts and stops with us, our happiness starts and stops with us. Our level of consciousness starts and stops with us. And there's no way around it, really, except for to turn back to ourselves and to go within and to start building that relationship with ourselves and also our spiritual connection, which is, which comes with building that relationship with ourselves. And how do you do that? You do that through things like meditation and things like that. But the thing about our spiritual journey is that you can't lie. When it comes to your own spiritual development and your own soul's evolution and growth, you can't lie. There's no way to lie, and there's no way for that evolution to take place except through working through these experiences that I'm talking about and going within. Everything that we earn when it comes to our own spiritual growth comes from the work that we have done around it. Nobody else can do that work for us. There's no system in place that allows for any other way for this growth to happen, but for us, the individual, to do the work that's needed for our own soul's growth. We've got to go through the pain. We've got to go through the change. We've got to go through the happy times, the sad times, the lonely times, the joyful times, the peaceful times. And if you'll notice, all of these times that I'm talking about are kind of at contrast with each other. And that is because we need that contrast in order to learn what it is we need to learn for our own soul's evolution. So that is pretty much the message that I want to share with you today. We talked a lot about this, I don't think I mentioned this yet, but on our show Inspired Living recently with a guest whose name is Lindy Cowling. She's out of the UK. I really love the work that she does. She's got just so much wisdom, knowledge, and experience with this, raising consciousness and ascension and all of that. And I would encourage you to look at her YouTube channel as well. But I hope that you found this to be helpful, and if there are things that are happening in your life, that major life changes, ways you're feeling within yourself, that you need some support with or help in understanding, I'd be happy to do that. I'd be happy to help you through my own experiences and my own, awareness, consciousness, and I guess the psychic work that I do. But this is what's happening, and people are not going to be able to ignore this anymore without really feeling the consequences that would come with ignoring it, especially when we're being called to move to higher levels. So with that said, I hope you found this helpful, and until next time, always remember to come from a place of love.